This is SoulCharge, the podcast for women leaders to take the highest level of ownership of their power to create results now. I'm your host, Stacy B. Let's dive in. Making exceptions is eroding your life and business. And let me tell you why. Today's episode is all coming in hot with truth bombs and, as my clients like to say, a slap in the face with a quick follow-up hug. This episode today is a call out to call you up to what your standards are and what it means to live by them. The most interesting thing that I notice with women leaders specifically is the amount of women leaders that, by way of their pricing, their packaging, or how they're running their teams, they have fallen victim to the lie, which is that on some level, they believe that if they self-sacrifice or compromise their standards, everyone else is comfortable. They compromise the pricing, the client signs up, that everything that they're trying to do has to come with some sort of compromise. And my intention with this episode today is that we kill that belief in you that is running that says, to have what I want means I have to compromise or self-sacrifice to get it. I have to move my boundaries to allow for other people, and that I am too much, that my standards are too much, that what I want is too much. That is a lie, and it dies with this episode today. Let us honor and celebrate the lives of lowering our standards and forevermore commit to no more aligning with the belief that we have to sacrifice to get what we want. I was talking to a few clients this past week, and this came up over and over again. And I was like, I have to bring this to you, because if they're experiencing it, I know you are too. And what I was noticing is a few key trends. And so I'm going to name them first as we kick off this episode so that you can move through this episode with them in mind and also associate and relate in your own life. Where is this showing up, and where can I really call myself out so that I can elevate, so that I can expand and become who I'm meant to be? So the first example of how I saw this showing up in one of the women leaders that I work with is she has been putting together proposals for her clientele. And in those proposals, she realized that she was not actually proposing what she thought was best for the client wholeheartedly. She was actually compromising her proposal by bringing down the service, bringing down the cost, because that's what she thought the client could afford. This is such a major issue because the client is hiring her in this case. Maybe this relates to you. Maybe you have pitched a package and you didn't actually price it the way that you really wanted to, or you didn't actually give the whole kit and caboodle that you knew would serve your client at the highest because you thought, what if they can't afford it? The problem with this mentality is not just the mentality, but actually the consequence and the impact that it has on your clients if you self-sacrifice in the beginning. Let's talk about this because it's twofold. The first implication is that you are actually dipping down to the problem your client currently has and why they are currently hiring you. Take that in. When you don't actually present the price that you want to charge, the services that you want to charge, you are actually getting in bed with the very problem that they are hiring you to solve. So what are you doing? You are perpetuating struggle instead of calling out their greatness. They are hiring you. They are aligning with you because you have a solution to the problem that they need to solve. By you foregoing on your price or services, you are literally keeping the struggle that they want to leave behind alive. You are doing this, and they don't know it, and you likely don't either. This is so important for you to hear because it's not just in the example I shared with the client. This doesn't just show up in pricing. It shows up in where we fudge our boundaries. It shows up in where we don't stick to what's meaningful or matters to us. Maybe we have the inspiration to hold the boundary, but then when the time comes, we have the opportunity to finally set the boundary and we get pushback and we don't follow through on the boundary. If this is you, you're not doing it wrong. You just need to close the loop. You just need to complete the circle. And the circle it starts with the boundary and it ends with you protecting it. No one else is going to watch out for that except for you. If we take it back to the client that I'm sharing about, for her, she had a zero intent of being a disservice. That's the last thing she wants to do. She has raving client fans. She has an incredible business and she is very successful. But there was this part of her that was trying to be palatable, and that's not what she's supposed to do. When we try to present ourselves as smaller than we are, and this is always unconscious. I have never met a woman leader that is like, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to go play small. No, it's pre-programmed. And so we have to call it out, to call it up and divorce it for good. But when she's going out into the world and she's putting this together, she thinks that she's being of highest service to the client, but she's actually keeping them stuck, not just physically, but energetically. If that particular client is, let's say, on a budget and wants to protect the budget, but the investment with this particular service provider is the thing that expands the business. If you lower your pricing and servicing to what they're telling you that they can afford, you're literally cutting your nose off to spite your face, and you are validating their lack and limitation. You are literally validating their lack and limitation if you cater to their standards. For so many of us as women leaders, we look at our standards and we look at the excellence that we are, and we look at the royalty that we really are, and we look at the standards and we make them wrong over time because we get feedback that we're too much, or we get feedback that, we're asking too much, or our expectations are too high. At some point, we experience this hurt. And the truth is that your expectations are not too high. The expectations that you have are yours to protect and yours alone. And guess what? When you uphold those expectations, when you actually call people to a higher level, you bring the best out of them. You actually call them up to what they're capable of. If you don't maintain your standards, you lower to whatever the default is. Most often, there isn't even a default because they don't have boundaries either. And so you're literally deciding to get in the suicide lane if you don't allow and protect and uphold your standards and boundaries. There's so much conversation around standards and boundaries. And I think that the focus a lot of times that I've heard is what it does for you. And that, of course, is a part of the equation, but we need to look at the bigger picture. This is not just about us. You have to understand that you have been given tastes and preferences and life experiences for a very specific reason that have defined what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you. By you owning where you start and stop and having boundaries and standards, you literally are not just protecting the kind of life you want to live and uphold, but you are actually being a model for generations to come. You are actually the woman that the little girl sees at the grocery store and says, Mama, I want to be like her. Your standards and boundaries are not just for you. They're also to show people what is possible. And I know for you as a woman, sometimes it can be easier when we get a perspective shift when it's not just about us because we're so conditioned to make it about something else, but actually to see this bigger picture, to actually see your impact. When you are holding that standard, you are literally setting in motion a better tomorrow. You are literally designing a better tomorrow. You are showing people what can be possible. So this is a total reframe on boundaries and standards. This isn't just about more space in your calendar or a micro moment. This is about you coming back to yourself and saying, this is my standard because it matters to me for no other reason. If you want space in the morning or you want whatever it is that you want, it is your job to uphold that. Not only is it your job, but if you don't do what you want to do, you literally are perpetuating struggle in yourself and in others because you're choosing to be like a tumbleweed. You are choosing to say, I'm going to go ahead and live my life and be at the whim of everyone else and be like a tumbleweed. I want to give you another example of how this shows up because it's very, second nature for us to identify where we don't have boundaries, probably beat ourselves up a little bit, say we're going to be different, and then hopefully you do change. But the thing that I want to speak to is I want to speak to how this impacts your team and how it impacts your family. When we make exceptions, when we forego our standards, and when we don't protect what matters to us, what happens is we essentially, I want you to imagine you're driving and you have two hands on the wheel, is when we make an exception or we forego what we really want and don't represent ourselves communicating on our own behalf, we essentially take one hand off of the wheel. And when we take one hand off of the wheel, whoever we're dealing with gets a hand on our wheel. And you can imagine if you have one hand that's a crazy drunk driver and another one that is driving straight, you can imagine the tension and friction that is caused because someone has one intent and someone has another. This is an image for you to understand what happens when we don't uphold our standards and boundaries, is we actually give our power away to the situation. And the problem with this is that the situation or person then thinks they have a voice at our table, which is an inappropriate opportunity. It's not an opportunity at all. It's really an inappropriate dynamic because we're responsible for that wheel. There are things that you brainstorm. There are things that you collaborate. There are absolutely things that you bring to the community, right? And get you get feedback on or input on. But when it comes to decisions, standards, how you want to move forward in something that is yours, and I think this is the differentiator, is when you make an exception or you allow someone to think that they have a say in something that's not appropriate. It's not appropriate if you are a CEO for you to open up conversation with an employee about how they think their vacation should be. You need to have that standard within your organization, as an example, right? Now, if I am taking my team out to lunch and I'm asking everyone where they want to go to lunch, that's an appropriate opening for someone to have a voice at the table, right? But there are things, and this might be true for you, there may be things in your life right now that people have input on that's not appropriate. Those situations turn into a feeling of negotiation. It feels like you have someone that's telling you how to be in your own world. That is not appropriate, and that is a clear indication of where a boundary or standard needs to be set. The thing that I see most with the women leaders that I work with is there is a misunderstanding around how expression, boundaries, and standards all work. I think that we think that we're supposed to say what we want, and if someone doesn't say yes, that means that it creates some drama or that, it's not moving forward. It's our responsibility as the leader of our life and business to not only say how it's going to go, but actually handle the responses with the people that give us pushback. That is where I see a huge power leak with women leaders, is that, frankly, they're close to burnout, right? They're going a million miles an hour. And so when they say something and someone pushes back, it almost turns into a conversation on a topic that is not a conversation. It is your opportunity to state something, to claim something, to set a standard or boundary. You have to see it all the way through. This is how you avoid self-abandonment. This is how you avoid self-betrayal, is you actually start to move through the world looking at communicating on your behalf as if you are representing yourself, as if you are representing your own best interest, as if you are representing yourself, as if there was some sort of professional service contractor, let's say, you were hiring on your behalf. This is how I want you to start looking at things. Because as women, what I notice is that there's this major disassociation where we stick up for ourselves, or we make the claim, or we set the standard. But then we get one little ounce of pushback and we think it's not working. It is. You just have to take it to the bank. You just have to close the loop. It's not just a half-assed or a tiptoe kind of approach on representing yourself. It is a full commitment to whatever it is you're claiming and ensuring that you stop at nothing to follow through on your behalf. The biggest erosion in energy, in power leaks, which is energy in my mind, that I see with leaders is when they are not saying what needs to be said and they're pissed about it. But they're not seeing that they're the ones that has to change that. They're the ones that has to say, I'm saying this and I'm going to keep saying it, and I don't care if you push back, but I'm closing this loop and this is how it goes. Your ability to start looking at standards and boundaries as necessary, as the best investment and the best attention and focus that you can bring to your life and business, the sooner that you start looking at this, the sooner everything is going to change. I can confidently tell you that if you are feeling tired, burnt out, meh, content, off, if any of those words are resonating with you, I can 100% tell you that it is because you are compromising yourself somewhere. You are not setting boundaries somewhere. You are not putting things in place somewhere. You're not saying what needs to be said, and you're putting up with it. Or you think you have to be a certain way to get a certain thing, and what's missing is you. What's missing is being all of you. And instead of trying to construct your life and business so that you're palatable, so that you're received by the market, so that you're presented in a certain way, you need to build your life and business on your terms. That's what life is asking. If you are feeling drained or you are feeling off, it's because you are compromising and you are sacrificing. And this is eroding yourself, your self-confidence. This is why you feel off, is because on some level, there's something that you are not acting in your own best interest about. And I promise you that if you shift that one thing, if you say, I'm going to go back and I'm going to assess, where am I not setting boundaries? Where am I letting someone else drive? Where do I have one hand on the wheel and I've let someone else think they have a hand on the wheel? When you ask these questions, you can quickly go and start to handle any circumstances or situations that might be going on and do this audit and course correct in real time. Once you do this, what that's going to do, you're going to immediately feel a surge. When I have calls with women, they see and feel this energy return to them in minutes of us talking about this. That can happen for you too. Because at the end of the day, what do we really want in our life and business? We don't want to perpetuate struggle. We don't want to be a disservice to our clients. We don't want to be a disservice to our team. But that is exactly what you're doing if you are not upholding your standards. You are not meant to be understood. You see, that's the thing. You are meant to be bold. You are meant to defy logic. You are meant to be the bigness and the grandness and the greatness that is you. And you have to take that seriously, because every moment that you live your life and you do not set this up and set these standards and maintain them, you are living someone else's life. And you are literally modeling to the world that it's okay not to be yourself, that it is okay to live in compromise and self-sacrifice and to settle. And I know that settling it's repulsive. The word settle to you is like, ugh, gross. It's like dirty. Like, no, we are not doing this. Get us back on track. Like, what do we need to do to set this right? Because first and foremost, it is about you. It is about setting right what you need to be the bold, big, badass leader that you are, and to set up your life so that it supports that versus you supporting everything else. Those days are over. The days of supporting everyone and everything else are over. This chapter is all about you. What do you need? What are your boundaries? What are your standards? And I promise you, anyone and anything that aren't aligned with who you really are falls away effortlessly, and beautiful new people, situations, opportunities come in to meet you where you're at. But it is all a lie, and it is all for naught if you choose to be someone that you are not by not upholding the beautiful standards that make you uniquely you. Are you loving SoulCharge? If so, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share an episode. We want to bring powerful content to women leaders each week so that women can be unleashed to create the results that they want now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.